Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me at all? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, so Evans, you can see me, right? Evans, can you hear me? Unmute yourself. Oh, wow. Can you hear me? You can unmute yourself so that you can respond. Let me hear you. Evans, you are on Zoom, so please talk. Evans, you have to learn to respond, though. You are the class captain, though, because I will always get feedback from you. Hey, Odua, God will help us. So please, you will have to use your real name because of the attendance, if you can hear me, because of the attendance, because I'm seeing something like TechnoSpark 7. If I'm going to mark attendance, there's nothing like TechnoSpark 7. Read me note 95 or 9S. There's nothing like that.
Good morning, ma'am.
Ernest, what is your surname? Ernest. Good morning. Put your surname also because of attendance. ITEL A56. Please put your name because of attendance. Taiwo Olatunji, good morning. God bless you. TechnoSpark 4, README 90. Put your name. I can't be talking to everybody at the same time. All right, so class captain, how many minutes should we still wait? We don't know how many people are on the YouTube, but right now on the Zoom, I have 50 persons. So I'm sure some will be using somehow on the YouTube live, I mean. So the Zoom can take up to 300 people. After then other people have to use the YouTube link. Evans, I don't know why you are not talking. You are muted. I permit you to unmute so that you can give me feedback. All
Good
right.
morning, ma.
So good morning.
Good morning, ma.
Yeah, Peter.
Yes, ma.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, ma. I'm fine, ma. Ma, how is the
God
attendance
bless
going to
you.
be taken? How is the attendance going to be taken, ma? Is it our surname of like our matric number? Should we send it as message?
When you are online, use your real name. Don't use a nickname. Don't use a phone number. This is the last time I'm going to be talking about it.
Okay, ma.
Thank you, everybody that has been saying good morning. Thank you very much. I'm going to start the lecture soon. God bless all of you. You are welcome back. I'm happy to see you all back to school. Now, please mute yourselves. Everybody mute yourselves. So mute yourselves. Mute yourselves. I can still hear background noise. Please mute yourselves. I'm about to start the lecture. Please mute yourselves. We are 85 on the Zoom. I don't know how many people are live on YouTube. You can mute yourself and turn off your video if it's going to disturb your internet connection. So, yeah, so I'm going to start very soon.
If not that your head is ballet.
These students, so today you will not hear word though.
Make a right of line now and get out.
Techno POP5, please use yourself and use your real name. I will send you out, Techno POP5. You are disturbing the class. All right, this is 1012.
Hold on. It's all great. Maybe. You too. Bukan, bukan. Ini tak.
You have two pens.
She's sharing her screen. Yeah, she has started sharing her screen.
Oladele, what is the problem? Please, I would not want you to do. You can send whatever you want to say to my WhatsApp. You can ask me that question. You can't hear anything. Not serious. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Somebody is saying you cannot hear anything. All right. Is it very clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
ma'am. It's
Yes,
clear.
ma'am. Very clear.
All
Very
right.
clear.
Thank God.
It's
So
clear, ma'am.
your registration week is gone, and you are supposed to have history and development of microbiology. But you will see it is Dr. Omotayo that's supposed to take that course. But presently, she's not on ground. She's not on ground currently. So I am going to start with my own session. As you can see, my session has been highlighted in green, week 11 to 13. Microorganisms in relation to food, microorganisms in relation to industry and environment, microbial variation and heredity, laws of heredity, Mendelian laws, including Punnett square. But there's no way I can, teach my course without first taking you through a brief introduction. So you will recall that in your 100 level, you actually did history and development of microbiology. I'm sure the lecturer that taught you definition of microbiology, which is the study of microorganisms, the organisms that are too small to be seen clearly by the unaided eyes. I'm sure you are taught all that. You are taught microorganisms like the eukaryotic organism, like the bread molds, the filamentous algae, and all that. You are taught definition of cells. Please mute. So you did some history of microbiology. You learned about how microorganisms have existed on Earth for billions of years. You were taught about microbial cells. You were taught about how microorganisms were existing even when there were no oxygen. You were taught about some great scientists that started the work on microorganisms and microbiology. You are taught about Robert Hooke that made his own contribution in 1665. You are taught about Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, who improved the microscope.
In 100 level was
We are taught about Francisco Reddy. We were taught about John Needham. You were taught about Lazzaro Lanzani. You are taught about Louis Pasteur and his postulation. You also looked at Robert Koch. You were taught about Koch postulate. In essence, what this is trying to tell you is that you have to go back to your MIC 101 notes. Some people are talking background. That means you are disturbing.
Having the same.
Dami, please mute. Damilare, please mute. Damilare, Samuel's iPhone, you are disturbing me, please. If you know you are still unmuted, please mute yourselves. I'm taking note of your names. If you don't adjust this week, this will affect your scores. It's getting better. Some people are still moving up and down. I can still hear some background noise. Please mute. I'm waiting. It's frustrating when you keep disturbing the class, please. It's very frustrating. All right.
Okay, so you're on Zoom,
Yes.
Hello.
Ma, please, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
She's asking for
Yes,
me.
ma.
Ma.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma.
I think
Yes,
it's the next work. So, but that is it. Just call my attention. You know, this is Nigeria, so the internet goes on and off. And I'm actually using two internets right now. I'm using my personal internet and another one that's stick that I brought. So I put on the two at the same time. So I didn't expect that anyone should fail. So the general, this is serious. So
Ma, we've not been hearing you for some while now.
who can hear me now?
We can hear you now, but we've not been hearing
we can hear you now. Yeah.
We can hear you, ma. We can hear you, ma. Right now, ma.
The previous slide, we didn't hear you for the previous
It
slide.
is only the barbarians that will talk at the same time. It is the network, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Ma, the thing is, we've not been hearing you for some time now, but we can hear you now.
All right.
Yes.
Olanike, can you hear me now? I want her to speak for everybody.
Yes, I can hear you now,
Can you hear me
ma.
now, please?
Yes, I can hear you now, ma. Yes, ma.
So, Olanike, when I ask question, please answer me, okay? Can you
Yes,
hear me
ma.
now? And it is
Yes,
only
I
you
can
that
hear
should
you
call
now,
my
ma.
attention. I don't want everybody to be talking at the same time. It's irritating. So you can hear me now. So Olanike, where did you stop hearing me, please?
Ma, it's been a while, ma, but now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the summary of what I have been saying for the past 15 minutes is that in your 100 level, you were taught talked about history of microbiology. We have spoken about history of microbiology. And you were taught about the various scientists that contributed to the history of microbiology. So I told you, go back to your MIC 121 notes and revise the history of microorganisms. So I now moved on to factors influencing the presence of microorganisms in food. And the first one is that the presence of microorganisms in food is influenced by the general environment from which the food was originally obtained. So I was trying to say that if the food was obtained, if the food was obtained from a farm whereby excreta is used as manure, you will be expected to see all kinds of microorganisms, including pathogenic organisms. And that is why you have to properly sterilize your vegetable, especially if you are going to eat the salads raw. The second point is the microbiological quality of the food in its raw state, which is also affected by the environment. The sanitary condition under which the food is produced by the handler, or how the food was processed. For example, if you want to make salad now, and you just visited the toilet, and you refuse to wash your hand or sanitize your hand, and you take your cabbage or carrots or cucumber, and you cut it and you begin to serve or eat it directly, surely the person will be infected with pathogenic organisms because the food was not prepared under sanitary conditions. The adequacies of subsequent packaging, handling, and storage conditions also will determine whether the microflora in the food will be high or low. For example, if you have a clean food and you put it in a dirty place, definitely the dirty packaging or plate will influence the microorganisms that will be impacted on the food. If you store the food, for example, in the fridge, and there's no light for better part of the day, you know that the microorganism will begin to proliferate at a very high rate. So under those conditions that I have mentioned, microorganisms will definitely exist in food. The list of microorganisms you can find in various food abound. We cannot mention everything. And mind you, when we are talking about food, is anything that you take into your system, including water, drink, juice. Food are anything that you eat that nourishes your system. So we cannot list all the microorganisms that are present in food, but we will list some important microorganisms that can be found in food. For example, we have different bacteria genera like the Acinetobacter, Enterobacter, Escherichia, Bacillus, Campylobacter, Clostridium, Lactobacillus, Listeria, and Salmonella, including Shigella. And you know the importance of these bacteria. For example, Escherichia. If you see Escherichia in your food, that is a sign that there is a infection. Because Escherichia is usually an indicator organism. If you find it in food or in water, it is a sign that that food and water may likely be contaminated. And we have organisms like Campylobacter. Campylobacter causes gastritis, and it may lead to cancer of the intestine. Clostridium is an anaerobic organism that do lead to infection. Listeria is also a pathogenic organism. And you know that Salmonella causes pathogenic diseases when you consume them with food. The same thing with Shigella and Yersinia. You also have some fungi, the mold and the yeast. You have aspergillus that could have toxins, Alternaria, Cladosporium, Fusarium, Mucor, Penicillium, and Rhizopus. For the yeast, you can have Candida. You have Candida that are pathogenic. You also have Candida that are used for production of food. You have Saccharomyces, Cryptococcus, Brettanomyces. Some of these organisms with Cloveromyces are yeast that are used for the production of beer and wine. You can have Schizosaccharomyces and Pichia. Those are organisms that can be found in food, especially wine, beer, and dairy products. You have some protozoa. Some of them are very bad that can cause diseases, like Cryptosporidium pavum, Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia lambli, and Toxoplasma gondii. They cause diseases when ingested with food or with water. What are the sources of microorganisms in food? Soil and water. For example, if your irrigation water is contaminated, then the food may be contaminated at the end of the day, like I explained earlier. I also explained the issue of the soil, which may be contaminated. If the soil is contaminated, of course, the food that will come out from that soil will eventually be contaminated. Hence, it is necessary to cook food properly before eating. And if it is vegetable, it is essential to sterilize with salt before eating. So another one is plants and plant products. Plants and plant products. The microorganisms that persist on plant products have the capacity to adhere themselves to plants. And that means they are deriving some nutrients from the plants, and that is why they are able to survive. So such a microorganism that is able to attach itself to plants are not easily washed away by rain. So they are attached to the plant, and it will take you some level of sterilization to be able to remove them from the food. Again, I will use example of cabbage or lettuce. That is why it is being soaked for like 2 to 3 minutes with salt or vinegar before it is finally eaten. All right, the food utensils, like I mentioned earlier. In your house, I don't know how you do it. You have chopping board. That chopping board, you can use it to cut your meat. You can use it to cut your fish or chicken. The question is, do you still use the same chopping board to cut your salad and your vegetable, which you eat raw? You know quite all right that if you cut your meat or chicken or fish with a chopping board, you have blood, you have leftover blood and some pieces of meat. No matter how you wash your chopping board and knife, they will surely contain some microorganisms. So in your house, it is wise that you have a chopping board for meat and another chopping board for your vegetable in order to avoid contamination of your food items. The intestinal tract of human beings and animals contain quite a lot of microorganisms. So you can have things like organisms like Salmonella, Enterobacter, and other pathogenic organisms. So it is important that when you go to the toilet, you wash your hand. Even some animals are infected. And if you eat animals that are infected without cooking properly, then the human being will also be infected. I have been privileged to see animals that were infected with tuberculosis, for example. Any human being that eats such an animal will be infected with the tuberculosis causing microorganisms. The food handler. You are preparing your food, especially if it is food that is not well cooked, and you are putting your hands in your nose. You put your hand in your nose to clean your nose. You did not wash your nose, and then you touch the food. Definitely, you will contaminate the food. If you are talking while cooking, definitely you will infect the food because you have microorganisms abound in your mouth, on your skin, and your intestine. That is why if you want to cook, it is advised that you wear some apron so that the microorganisms that are attached to your skin will not easily enter into the food you are preparing. So you have to prevent contamination of food through personal hygiene practices. That is the bottom line. Animal feed. Animal feed is another source of microorganisms in food. For example, if the feed that is being used to feed animals are contaminated with salmonella or listeria, the animals too will be contaminated, will come down with disease. And any human being that eats that meat without cooking appropriately will also be affected. So the silage or the feed that is being used to feed animals must be kept well in proper way that it will not contaminate the animal feed, so that the animals themselves will not come down with pathogenic infections. The animal skin, for example, can also be infected. Animals do have skin diseases. For example, those of you that like to eat pomo, you like to eat pomo, but the truth of the matter is some animal hides, that is their skin, may have diseases. They may have pathogenic organisms. So you have to cook them properly before it is eaten. In an environment where raw milk is taken, they have to be sure that the animal does not have skin diseases. Because in the process of milking the nipple of the cow, then the microorganisms that surround the skin of the nipple can contaminate the milk with pathogenic microorganisms. So anybody that takes such a milk will be contaminated with such hair and dust. Hair and dust can also infect microorganisms. Hair and dust can also infect food with microorganisms. And such microorganisms may persist on the food if the food is a suitable substrate for such microorganisms. Some of you are distracting me. All right. Some of you are disturbing me, please. All right. So microorganisms in food, what are their effects in food? What are their effects? I've told you I will prepare your note. Your note is already prepared. I will give you your notes. You don't have to bother yourself. So foodstuffs are usually a good substrate for microorganisms because most foodstuffs will have carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and oil. Those are the three main components of food. These carbohydrates, protein, fat, and oil are very good substrates, that is media, for different kinds of microorganisms. So because of the presence of these substrates, microorganisms will easily survive on most of this food because they have enzymes that will make them to break these food substances into usable forms. These are called enzymes. So we have microorganisms that love to thrive on carbohydrate food. Some like protein food, while some like fats and oily food. We also have microorganisms that can take up any kind of substrate, whether it is a lipid, whether it is carbohydrate, whether it is protein. So for example, carbohydrate food like cereal, like corn or millet, are acted upon by carbohydrate fermenting microorganisms. For example, Saccharomyces and some bacillus, they can actually produce enzymes like amylase, like cellulase, that can break down carbohydrates to produce acids, alcohol, and gases. That is why cereals can be fermented to produce beer and wine. We also have proteinous foods like milk, egg, meats that can be acted upon by proteolytic microorganisms. And when proteolytic microorganisms act on proteinous food like milk, for example, they produce amino acids, amine, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. That is why when milk or egg or meat is spoiling, you will smell very terrible odor of hydrogen sulfide. It is as a result of the proteolytic activity of microorganisms. Fatty acids like oil are acted upon by lipolytic microorganisms or lipolytic microorganisms, producing fatty acid and glycerol. So you will find out 3 examples each of organisms that can break down carbohydrates. You find out 3 examples of organisms that can break down protein. Find out 3 organisms that can break down fats and oil. That is, find out 3 examples of proteolytic microorganisms, 3 examples of lipolytic microorganisms. As you already know, your exam is going to be CBT. So you need to find out what I asked you to find out. Lizzie, you are disturbing my class. I tell P3, you are disturbing my class. Galaxy A10, you are disturbing the class. And by the time attendance is taken, there's nothing like I tell P33. And Lizzie, you may not be the only Lizzie in the class, so you better put your surname. Classification of food. Classification of foods. So foods can be characterized or classified based on their characteristics. For example, you have perishable foods. Those foods that can spoil quickly, for example, meat, fish, poultry, and other dairy products, including vegetable and some fruits. They get spoiled quickly because they have high amounts of water in them. Microorganisms, especially bacteria, require water to survive. So most foods that are high in water can get spoiled quickly, and they are classified as perishable foods.
My full name.
Semi-perishable foods, those that spoil less quickly. For example, your nuts like groundnuts, pear, and apple. Those foods can be kept for a while without getting spoiled. So they are known as semi-perishable foods. We have stable or non-perishable foods. Those are the foods that do not spoil when kept under normal storage conditions. For example, you can keep a sack of rice, a sack of sugar, or a sack of cereal for years. If you do not allow water or moisture to get into such a food. What are the roles of microorganisms in food? You see, microorganisms are not all bad. When people hear about microorganisms, all they want to think about is diseases, sickness, but it is not like that. We have microorganisms that play very good roles in the production of food. Biotechnology has enabled microorganisms to serve different roles in food production. So we have desirable role or activity of microorganisms in food. We also have undesirable activity of microorganisms in food. So let's look at the desirable activities of microbes in food. For example, fermentation of food. Microorganisms are used to ferment food. You have fermented soya, fermented pickles, fermented meats, fermented ogi. You have your iru that is fermented, our local iru or ogiri. Dawa dawa in Hausa, they are fermented by the activity of microorganisms. You have fermented dairy products like yogurt. You can produce yogurt yourself if you have lactobacillus species. You also have cheese, butter, and sour creams. Microorganisms are actually used for their production. You can find out the name of microorganism that does this, but you will still do it in your MIC 404, I mean 423 now. If you go to Kwara State and other middle belts, they produce cheese from cow milk. Usually these Fulani women milk the cheese and then they boil it. And they usually had enzyme. When I was very young, I didn't know it was enzyme they are having. But there's one leaf, there's one plant. I don't really know the botanical name, but in Yoruba, it is called bombom. After putting the milk in the pot, then they pluck one or two bombom leaves and put it in the milk that is boiling. And the milk will be curdled. They will be solidified to form curdle. And after a while, they will sieve the water from the curdled milk and process it and cut it into shapes. And that is your cheese. And the local cheese is usually very rich and fresh than the cheese that we actually purchase from the supermarkets. Alcoholic beverage fermentation like beer, wine, burukutu, and pito is another kind of food or drink that microorganisms do play a good role. Guinness and what is it called now, Nigerian brewery, for example, they have different strains of microorganisms like Saccharomyces, which they use in the production of their beer. Everybody have their own strain, and their strain is unique to them and is their own secrets. It is their own secrets. You know, Guinness will not reveal the kind of Saccharomyces they are using to NBL. So if you look at it, the lager beer that is produced by NBL, 5-star, is it 5-star now, is better off than the beer produced by Guinness. But if you look at the black beer, the stout produced by Guinness, stout any day, anytime is better than Legends produced by NBL. So they all have their different strain that gives them their unique taste, their unique taste, and how do you call it? That people actually, I don't drink beer, but those who drink beer, they know that stout is better than Legend, for example. And they also know that Star is better than some other beer. So I don't know about that. So the fermentation of other food like ogi, iru, dadawa, and ogiri, like I told you. Marvins, you are yawning. This is still early in the day. All right. Microorganisms are also used as food supplements and additives. For example, we have single cell protein and edible mushrooms. You know, there are edible mushrooms and there are poisonous mushrooms, which when people eat, it can lead to death. So when we are talking about edible mushrooms, those are very good fungi that are sources of protein. We have also heard about some yeast that were, you know, produced to take care of eye problems, yeast for eye problems. Those are also the work of microorganisms. Single cell proteins can also be produced by producing microorganisms en masse, biomass, and using it as a source of protein for feeding animals. You also have bacterial metabolites like bacteriocin, which can be used for producing, preserving food. Bacteriocin are produced by some bacterial species like bacillus. And these toxins, you know, these bacteriocin, they serve like antibiotics. So when, you know, used for food preservative, they do not allow the invasion of other pathogenic microorganisms in the food. We also have different roles of probiotics for human health. Now you have heard that when you ferment yogurt, you can add some live microorganisms like lactobacillus to it, and then people can take the yogurt, and the yogurt serves to preserve or protect their intestine. When you have probiotics in your food, the microorganisms in the probiotic food embed your intestine so that when pathogenic microorganisms, if you, for example, take in pathogenic organism with your food, because you already have some probiotic microorganism in your intestine, the pathogenic organism will not have a space to attach itself in the intestine. So it will be flushed with the feces down to the toilet. So it helps to protect you from pathogenic organisms. Microorganisms are foods to ward off invasive microorganisms. For example, Bacillus subtilis ST13, after safety study, has been reported to show antimicrobial activity against enteric pathogenic organisms like Salmonella that causes typhoid disease. We also have lactic acid bacteria that can be isolated from iru or ogi, those traditional food that promote health benefits. It is known that when you use iru, you get up to 36 or 42% of protein. So sometimes you do not need synthetic Maggi to produce your food. Microbes contribute to improving animal feeds for ruminants, for example, and non-ruminants. E.g., white rot fungi help to ferment wheat straw to improve protein content and digestibility for ruminants like cattle, like goats that actually take in lignocellulose or plant biomass. We all know that plant biomass have lignin. They are surrounded by lignin. And before the animal can digest to take up the cellulose or to use up the glucose or the sugars, the lignin must be broken down. So some white rot fungi can be used to break the lignin content of plant products before the product can be used to feed the animals for e.g. easy digestion. So example, we have production of beer. The microorganisms that can be used include Saccharomyces cerevisiae, Saccharomyces calsbajensis, and Saccharomyces uverum. They can convert sugar to alcohol and carbon dioxide. What do? They produce changes in protein and other components that modify the flavor of the beer. You will do that in higher level. The palm wine. When you tap palm wine, or you buy a freshly tapped palm wine, you will likely find Saccharomyces cerevisiae, Candida species of different types, Schizosaccharomyces pombe and lactobacillus species. They will ferment the palm juice after a while. That is why when a newly tapped palm wine is tasted, it is very sweet. But after some few hours, the palm wine will be fermented and will become alcoholic. The taste and flavor will change. Cheese. Cheese can be produced using Brevibacterium lineens, Penicillium roqueforti, Streptococcus salivarius, subspecies Staphylococcus. These organisms can be used for ripening of cheese. And in wine, we can use Saccharomyces ellipsoides or different strains of Saccharomyces vulvarus or Saccharomyces oviformis to convert sugars to alcohol and also modify the taste of the wine. What are the undesirable factors or activities of microorganisms in food? Microorganisms during handling, during production, during packages can penetrate food, which can affect human health. Microorganisms cause food spoilage. For example, milk and milk products can be spoiled by lactic acid bacteria. Carbohydrate-rich food like bread or jam and some other fruits can be spoiled by mold, e.g. Rhizopus stolonifer, the bread mold. If you buy a loaf of bread and you did not keep it in the fridge, and you decide to keep it in your kitchen, after about 3 to 5 days, depending on the temperature, if the weather is very hot and humid, after 3 or 4 days, you begin to see different colors of mold on your bread. You will see black, you will see green, you will see orange color. Those signify different strains of mold that can grow, but mostly Rhizopus stolonifer mold that causes spoilage of bread. Proteinous food like meat can be spoiled by Clostridium. And these organisms causes foul smells because of putrefaction. If you buy geisha, tomato, or sardine, and you see the end, one top of or the both end of the container swelling. If you have ever bought geisha or sardine or tin tomato and it is swollen and bulky, definitely you should not take it because it has been infected with anaerobic organism. As soon as you open such sachet you will hear the sound of gas and everything will spill out, showing that it has been infected by anaerobic bacterial organisms, most likely to be Clostridium species. If you have butter, after a while, the butter changes taste. It can become rancid. The kind of organism that can cause spoilage of butter is lipase producing microorganism. That is, the organism can produce lipase, an enzyme that can spoil butter. Because they also cause foodborne disease. Microorganisms like cholera, microorganisms like Vibrio cholera can cause cholera when eating with food or taking with water. Dysentery can be caused by Shigella dysenteriae. Food poisoning can be caused by Staphylococcus aureus or Salmonella species. What are the factors that may affect microbial growth in the food? Shita Oluwafemi, please mute your phone. Some factors can affect microbial growth in food. What are these factors? Because most foods act as excellent media, like I explained earlier. The environment will determine how fast the microorganisms will grow in the food. So we can have intrinsic factors. Intrinsic factor, that is the factors that are inherent in the food. You can have extrinsic factor, or what is called environmental factor. We will look at it one by one. And you also have implicit factor, that is properties and interaction of the microorganism present in food. Then you also have the processing factors, that is the factors that affect the food during the process of packaging or processing. So let's look at the intrinsic factors. That is the nutrient factor of the food. If the food is rich in nutrients, for example, protein, lipids, carbohydrates, vitamins, that is a complete nutrient for microorganisms. So if you have such a food like meat or fish, fish have some level of protein, it has lipids, it has minerals, it has vitamins. So it is a very good substrate for food. So any food that has plenty of nutrients will easily support the growth of microorganisms. And so the food will easily get spoiled. So plant foods that are rich in carbohydrates, but poor in protein and minerals and vitamins will not easily support the growth of microorganisms. So it will likely not spoil quickly. So meat is rich in protein, lipid, minerals, but is poor in carbohydrate. So the microorganism that will spoil this food will be microorganisms that can digest protein, lipids, and also use the minerals and the vitamins. Milk is rich in all 5 nutrients, so it will support the growth of microorganisms. So if you want to work in the lab and you don't even have nutrient agar, you can make use of milk, you can make use of blood, because they are rich in nutrients and will support the growth of microorganisms. But remember that the nutrient requirements for bacteria are more than for yeast and mold. If you put bread down, yeast and mold will take it up. They will use it, but it will not support bacterial growth as such. Microorganisms also differ in their ability to utilize complex molecules, for example, starch and cellulose. And if you even have lignin, for example, not all bacteria or fungi can break them. So you will need microorganisms that can break starch, for example, before some lower bacteria can make use of the remnants or the products from the breakdown. So only microorganisms that have the ability to produce enzymes are capable of degrading complex compounds. For example, if I put corn down, it is not all microorganisms that can use corn. But if the corn is invaded by fungi, fungi can break down the corn, and then you have plenty of cellulose and sugar as a result of the breakdown done by the fungi. When the glucose is available, it is available in a simple form. So bacteria can come and begin to feed on the glucose. For example, the ability to produce amylase, that is starch degrading enzyme, will favor the growth of organisms in cereal, like I explained. pH is another intrinsic factor, the pH. Microorganisms thrive at different pH range. Generally, bacteria will grow faster in the pH range of 6 to 8, whereas yeast will grow better at pH of 4.5 to 6, whereas mold will grow at a very low pH of 3 to 4. The optimal pH for lactobacilli, for example, and the acetic acid bacteria is 5 to 6. If the pH is lower than that, it may affect their growth rates. Vegetables with higher pH than fruits are spoiled by pseudomonas and other bacteria. Fruits generally undergo mold and yeast spoilage because they have very low pH value, less than 3.5. So it is mostly mold and yeast that can survive. That is why it is mold and yeast that usually spoil vegetables and fruits. Water content of food is another factor. The more water activity, the more water or moisture content a particular food has, the more easy it is for the food to be invaded by microorganisms, because the water will be made available for the microorganisms to thrive. That means the water activity of that food is very high. Remember that you can have water in food, and yet water may be made unavailable to the microorganism. That is exactly what they do when food is packaged or in bottles. If you look at baked beans, for example, you will discover that baked beans have some sugar taste. The sugar is added to make the water unavailable to the microorganism. Though the water is there, but the water is not available to the microorganism. The same thing happens when you see sardine. Sardine is very salty. The salt is added to make the water unavailable to the microorganism, and that is a method of preservation. So water content also determines how fast microorganisms can grow in different foods. So different organisms require different water activity for their optimum growth. Oxidation reduction potential is another intrinsic factor. That is the rate at which food can disintegrate, differ from each other. If, for example, you put a piece of raw meat in your kitchen, the rate at which oxidation reduction potential will take place will be faster than if you put an apple on the table. If you prepare amala today and you put it in your food flask, by next tomorrow, if you open the amala, you will see that it has separated and everything has turned watery. That is an example of simple oxidation, reduction potential. The ability for them, for this food to lose electron, and the ability for the food to get electron differ. So foods that can easily lose electron will easily be invaded by microorganisms. Biological structure is another intrinsic factor. Biological structure plays different important role in the cause of spoilage of food. For example, a food that has shell will take time to spoil. When granite is kept in their pericarp, their outer covering, they are not easily invaded by microorganisms. When the egg of shells are intact and not cracked, it will take time for that egg to be spoiled. Animals have skin coverings, their hides, that protect them from spoilage. But any exposure of this biological structure, any damage, can then make the food to be easily attacked by microorganisms, thereby leading to spoilage. Some foods also have antimicrobial constituents. The antimicrobial constituents enable the food substance to last longer because it does not easily support the growth of microorganisms, especially when you keep them at a very good temperature. For example, eugenol in cloves. Garlic has allicin, which does not allow it to easily get spoiled. Lactoferrin is found in cow milk that protect the cow milk from spoiling easily. If you see your pepper, you know, you can grind your dry pepper and keep it for over a year, as long as you did not take the pepper with wet spoon. You will discover that the pepper will last longer because of these antimicrobial constituents that they have. Spices, like I said, like pepper, has antimicrobial substances which can inhibit fungi. Spices are associated with pathogenic and spoilage microorganisms like coliform, bacillus, Clostridium, and Salmonella, especially if you take your pepper or your spices with wet spoons or you allow moisture to get into them. For example, if you take your bottle of pepper and you want to put it on your egg on the fire, or you are cooking rice, you want to pour some of this curry, remember that the moisture in the food you are cooking is entering the bottle of the curry or the pepper. That is the reason why most of these spices get spoiled, because you allow water to get in there, and as soon as some of these microorganisms are able to get some moisture, they will begin to thrive and grow and then cause spoilage of such a food. Phytoalexins, for example, protect plants. Phytoalexins in plants, example, fasciolin, glaciolin, and hippoerone. They protect some plants from being invaded easily by plants. But when such plants are broken or damaged, the damaged ends are easily going to allow invasion of microorganisms, thereby causing spoilage. Now look at the extrinsic factors. Extrinsic factors are external factors. So no matter how hard you try to keep your food safe, if there's relatively high relative humidity, then water will be available for the microorganisms, and the microorganisms will be able to grow. So if you take your cereal like rice, like millets, and you do not keep it properly, and you allow some water activity or moisture, then molds will begin to grow. So you have moldness of maize and black bread molds that are common when there's relative humidity. Or in the US, you can keep your soup on your table for some days and you don't need to warm it and they will not spoil because the temperature is cool and there's no humidity. So the food will last longer. But in Nigeria, when we have hot weather, you have a lot of water in the air. There's relative humidity. So the food can absorb some of the water and get spoiled quickly. So apart from relative humidity, you have temperature, like I said. Microorganisms also grow at a wide range of temperature between -8 degrees and 100 degrees centigrade. So different temperature different organisms have different optimum temperature that they can thrive. The fact that they have optimum temperature does not mean that they can not grow at other temperature, but a particular temperature supports their growth better. For example, you have the saprophytes. They can grow at 0 degrees centigrade. So even if you put your food in the deep freezer at -5, you can still have some microorganisms growing there. If you want to try it, you can, swab your freezer and then grow it in the laboratory. You will see that you will still find some microorganisms. Although the optimal temperature of psychrophiles are between 12 and 15 degrees centigrade, but they can equally grow at 0 degrees centigrade and up to -5 degrees centigrade. You have the psychotrophs. They can grow at 0 degrees centigrade. They can grow well at a temperature below 7 degrees centigrade, but they have their optimum temperature between 20 and 30 degrees centigrade. The mesophiles grow well between 20 and 45 degrees centigrade, but they have their optimum temperature between 30 and 40 degrees centigrade. Now we have thermophiles. Thermophiles can grow at a very high temperature, even above 45 degrees centigrade. They usually have their optimum temperature between 55 and 65 degrees centigrade. Thermophiles are very useful group of microorganisms because when you are able to get the enzyme of thermophiles, then they will be able to be preserved at higher temperature, especially around here, whereby we usually lack light or electricity that does not enable our freezers to function appropriately. So enzymes that can tolerate high temperature are good. Microorganisms that can tolerate high temperature will likely produce good enzymes that will be useful for biotechnology purposes, simply because the enzymes that they produce will be able to survive at different temperatures, especially high temperature. Now, gaseous atmosphere. The gases around a particular food or in an environment will determine whether microorganisms can survive. Now, when you open your bottle of Coke, you hear noise of gases. You open your wine, you can hear the sound of carbon dioxide oozing out. This is because this food has been preserved with carbon dioxide, knowing fully well that oxygen will allow the growth of many microorganisms. So using carbon dioxide to preserve the food will prevent the growth of several microorganisms. But such kind of preservation has to be thorough because you have to be sure that the bottle or the can that you are using to preserve the food is actually clean and that the food itself and the container is sterile. Otherwise, the food will still spoil. That is what you find when you find geisha or sardine or tin tomato bulging, meaning that the food or the container was not thoroughly sterilized. So even if carbon dioxide has been used to store it, definitely the organism, the anaerobic organism that survive will be able to continue food. All right, so we will stop here for today. We've actually taken a lecture that we are supposed to take for the whole week. And the reason why I did that, take 2 hours today instead of 1 hour, is because I want us to buy time. We are 4 lecturers that will take this lecture, and every lecturer requires three weeks, as you can see from your scheme of work. So every lecturer requires three weeks. It then means that we have just 13 weeks. So if we have already missed a week during registration, so we have 12 weeks. That means that I must finish my own lectures before you go for Christmas. So I'm believing God that if we work hard, and because I have already prepared your notes and I don't have to dictate notes, it will definitely make us to move faster. So I'm believing that around the 17th or 18th of December, which is like 2.5 to 3 weeks from now, we should be able to finish my own part of the lecture so that you can at least enjoy your Christmas. And then when you come back in January, the next lecturer can then take you on from there. But for us to move very fast, you have to cooperate. If we continue to have a very noisy class, then it will be very, very difficult to finish on time. Because right now, I'm speaking at the top of my voice because some of you were complaining of not hearing me here and there. So it is very, very difficult. So I will require your cooperation. I will talk to your class captain, Evans, so that he can pass the message across to you appropriately. I promise you, I have prepared all your notes. Every week you will have your notes. So you need to cooperate so that we can finish fast. In fact, if you want us to finish by the middle of December, it is very possible with your cooperation so that at least you can enjoy your Christmas in peace. I do know that there are hold-ups here and there, and it's going to be worse towards Christmas. So helping you to finish on time will be very good for you. But that is only possible when you cooperate. So I would like to stop here for today. Like I said earlier at the beginning of this lecture, next week, another link will be used. Hopefully, they would have given me my own permanent link. But like I said, this Zoom link that I gave to you, the password and the ID is for me. You can always use it every week, but it can only accommodate up to 300 students. After then, other students will have to join on the live YouTube. Ensure that you are in the class always, because the attendance are already stored. All I need to do is to print it out and mark my attendance. Ensure that you come in to this lecture with your own real name. Otherwise, you will score 0 for attendance. And when there's the need for us to help students, we always check if students attend classes. If you don't attend up to 65% of classes, it is a no-no, and you can even be prevented from taking this exam. Lecturers have the right not to allow students that did not attend class up to 65% not to attend exam. So you are coming up to 200 level now. You have to get serious. By now, you should have looked back to see where you committed one error or the other. So try to adjust and get serious. Begin to read your book from day one. Please don't pile up your notes for tomorrow. Please don't keep the work that you are supposed to do today for tomorrow. And I'm sure it shall be well with you. I will assist you by giving you one of the lecture period, maybe one is in a week or once in 2 weeks, that I will not allow you to come for lecture. You will go to the library to read the notes I have given to you so that you can catch up with your notes, not just piling up notes. I will discuss other issues with Evans, and we shall all agree on what is better for you. I thank you for coming for this lecture, but I do not enjoy the noise from those who refuse to mute. So please enjoy your day, and I hope most of you have gotten accommodation. For those of you that didn't get accommodation and could not score, please be careful as you move about the town. The world is a dangerous place right now. Please and please take care of yourself. Also try to take your vaccine. Use your nose mask. I pray it shall be well with you all in the mighty name of Jesus. I can see somebody raising hand. You can unmute and speak, please, if you are raising your hand. Hey, hello, Doc. Sorry, I'm in a lecture. I'm having my lecture. It will end by 12. Yeah, I will call you. Okay. Akiola, you can speak, please. I can see your hand. Please speak.
Good morning, ma.
I want to ask if these materials will be uploaded on the LMS.
Akinola,
Yes, ma'am.
I have said it from the beginning of this lecture that one, I will give you these notes. I will give the note physically to your class captain. I'm also working with the CITS to bring out those that have registered for this course on the LMS, so that from next week, I'll be able to upload the note. I have gone to the LMS yesterday, and I could still see the list of last year candidates. I want those people to be out of the LMS. I want to delete those people, to remove them, so that I can see the new MIC 211 student before we begin to use the LMS. Please. So you all run on the LMS till next week. I will let you know. Thank you. I'm not going to repeat myself on that. Yeah, but you can have your notes. Evans can come for your notes tomorrow. Evans, you can see me. I'll tell you where I am, so that you can have the physical notes, and whoever wants it can make photocopy. But as soon as the LMS is ready, I will still upload your notes, and I can still upload the video. No, but even then, you have the YouTube link, so you can watch the video over and over again. Although it is pretty difficult today, because I am actually hearing my own voice. I can hear echo because of those that are on YouTube. That is usually the problem of combining YouTube Live with Zoom. But I would ask the CITS if there's anything I can do to better it. Otherwise, we'll just manage through. At least we are done with microorganisms in relation to food. You can come for your notes tomorrow, Evans. And then when next we meet, we'll talk about microorganisms in relation to the environment. Thank you for coming. Have a lovely day. Please take care of yourself. God bless you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless you. Take care of yourself. Please stay out of trouble. Don't trust people too much, please.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you. Aisha, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you. Iwebuchi, Nguta, thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma.
Gwen, thank you.
Thank you, ma.
I'm serious today.
Wale, thank you. Waleski, Abi, is that your name? Is that what I will use to mark your attention? Olatunji Odunayo, thank you. Temitope Hussein, God bless you. Olatunji Odunayo, Elizabeth, God bless you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you. Gutoye, thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Olanipe Kwenito, thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma. Bye-bye. Love you all. Bye.
Are you ready to come? Like, forget to there. You see that.
What